Marcus Chen stood at the entrance of the Grand Meeting Hall on Kepler 7 station. The massive doors opened slowly, revealing a chamber that made him feel very small. The ceiling stretched so high above that he could barely see it through the dim lighting. Around the circular room, representatives from dozens of alien species sat in elevated seats, looking down at the center floor where Marcus would have to stand. He walked forward, his footsteps echoing in the silent hall. Every eye in the room watched him. Some eyes were large and insectoid, others glowed with inner light. A few belonged to creatures he could not even recognize as having faces. Marcus reached the center platform and stopped. He wore a simple dark suit carrying only a small datapad. Compared to the elaborate armor, flowing robes, and glowing crystals worn by the aliens around him, he looked plain and unimpressive. A deep voice boomed from above. "The Galactic Collective recognizes the representative from Earth. You may speak, human." The speaker was a Krex, a species that looked like walking tanks. Their bodies were covered in thick, natural armor plates that could stop most weapons. They stood over 3 meters tall with 4 arms ending in claws that could crush steel. The Krex had conquered 12 worlds through pure military strength. Marcus bowed slightly. "Thank you, honored representatives. I come today to propose a trade agreement between Earth and the Collective. We offer rare metals, technological innovations in medicine, and cultural exchanges." A ripple of sound moved through the chamber. It took Marcus a moment to realize they were laughing. A Vellani floated forward. The Vellani were beautiful creatures with translucent skin that shifted colors and no visible legs. They moved through the air using psychic powers that human scientists still could not explain. This one's skin glowed bright purple with amusement. "Medicine?" the Vellani said, its voice like music in Marcus's mind. "What could your species possibly teach us about medicine? You cannot even heal yourselves without crude tools and chemicals. We repair our bodies with thought alone." More laughter echoed around the chamber. A Thorian commander stood next. The Thorians were the military backbone of the Collective. They had 4 legs, 2 arms, and skin that looked like living metal. They had never lost a war in their recorded history. "And what of military defense?" the Thorian asked. "Your kind has no natural armor. No claws, no venom, no psychic abilities. You are soft and weak. Even your own planet's predators hunted you for thousands of years." The Krex speaker leaned forward, its massive frame casting a shadow over Marcus. "I have read the files on humanity. You conquered your world through persistence hunting. You simply followed your prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. How quaint. How pathetically slow." The chamber filled with the sounds of alien amusement. Some hissed. Some clicked. Some made sounds Marcus had no words to describe. Marcus stood still, his face calm. He let them laugh. He had expected this. "My species may seem weak to you," he said quietly, "but we have survived worse than you imagine." The Krex waved a massive claw dismissively. Yes. You survived ice ages and plagues. So did bacteria. That does not make you valuable to the Collective." A small alien that looked like a floating jellyfish spoke up. "The question before us is simple. What does Earth offer that we need? And the answer is nothing. You are too far behind. Too primitive. Too weak." The Vellani's voice rang in everyone's mind. I scanned this human's thoughts as he entered. I felt his emotions. Do you know what I found? Fear, nervousness, hope, such simple base feelings. There is no depth to their minds. No complexity. They are children playing at diplomacy. Marcus felt something cold settle in his chest, but his expression did not change. His hand moved slightly, touching the dog tags he wore under his shirt. The metal felt warm against his skin. The council debated among themselves for the next hour. Marcus stood in the center, waiting. They talked about humanity as if he was not there. They compared humans to various creatures on their own worlds. Most of the comparisons were not flattering. Finally, the Krex speaker raised a hand for silence. "We have reached a decision. Earth will be granted a Class 5 trade status. You may purchase basic goods from collective markets. You may not sell military technology, as you have none worth selling. You may not vote on collective matters. You may establish one small embassy on a border station. Do you accept these terms?" Marcus looked up at the towering aliens around him. Every one of them thought they were superior. Every one of them believed humans were harmless. He smiled. It was a small smile, barely visible, but something in his eyes changed. For just a moment, the Vellani observer felt something strange from the human's mind. Something old. Something that made its skin flicker to a warning color of dark red. "We accept," Marcus said. "Thank you for your generosity." The session ended. The aliens filed out, already forgetting about the small human and his worthless planet. Marcus walked back toward the exit, passing by the Krex warrior who had mocked him earlier. The Krex looked down at him. "No hard feelings, human, but your kind needs to understand your place in the galaxy. You are simply outmatched." Marcus stopped and looked up at the towering creature. "Tell me something. How many wars has your species fought?" The Krex's chest swelled with pride. 73 major campaigns. "We won them all." "Impressive," Marcus said. "My species has been at war for 10,000 years. We have fought ourselves, our environment, our diseases, and every predator on our world. We have won every single time." He paused. "We are still here. Still fighting. Still surviving." The Krex laughed. "That is not something to be proud of, human. That is simply sad." Marcus's smile did not reach his eyes. "Perhaps. But it is what we are good at." He walked away, leaving the confused Krex behind. That night, Marcus sat alone in his small quarters on the station. The room was bare, with only a bed, a desk, and a small window showing the stars outside. He pulled out the dog tags from under his shirt and held them in his hand. They were old, worn smooth by time. The name engraved on them was barely readable. Captain James Chen, his grandfather. A man who had fought in Earth's last great war before they reached the stars. Marcus remembered the stories his grandfather had told him. Stories about humanity's history, about the wars they fought, about the terrible things they learned to do to survive. "They never learn," Marcus whispered to the empty room. "They never do." He looked out at the stars, at the vast galaxy full of species that thought they were strong. Species that thought they were safe. Species that had forgotten what it meant to fight for survival. Marcus put the dog tags back under his shirt. Somewhere out in the dark, beyond the edge of known space, sensors were picking up strange readings. Ancient machines were stirring. And the galaxy was about to learn a lesson it had forgotten long ago. The lesson was simple. Never laugh at something that refuses to die. Marcus closed his eyes and tried to sleep. Tomorrow he would send his report to Earth. The report would be brief. Trade agreement secured. Status ignored and underestimated. Recommend we maintain low profile. But he would add one more line, one that only certain people on Earth would understand. The Reaper sleeps. For now. 3 months passed after Marcus Chen's visit to Kepler-7. In that time, Earth's small embassy opened on a forgotten border station called Outpost Meridian. Trade ships began moving between Earth and a few minor collective worlds. Everything seemed normal and quiet. Then the signals started. The first came from an archaeological expedition on a dead world called Terminus 9. The scientists had found ruins there, ancient structures that predated even the oldest collective species. They believed the ruins were safe. Just interesting historical artifacts. They were wrong. Dr. Selvith, a Villani scientist, sent the final transmission from Terminus 9. The message was fragmented and filled with terror. "We found something. The chamber machines, they are waking up. The transmission cut off in a burst of static and screaming. The collective sent a science vessel to investigate. The ship arrived at Terminus 9 and found nothing. No expedition team. No buildings, no ruins. The entire site had been erased down to the bare rock. Even the rock looked melted. But the ship's sensors picked up something leaving the planet. Multiple somethings, large, moving fast, heading toward the nearest colony world. The colony was called Haven 3, home to 15 million Thorians. The governor received a warning, but it came too late. By the time the defense fleet arrived, Haven 3 was silent. The Thorian warships found a world covered in gray dust. Every building had been broken down to its basic materials. Every living thing was gone. In orbit, massive machines waited. They were angular and dark, covered in strange symbols that hurt to look at. The machines turned toward the Thorian fleet. There was no communication, no warning. The machines simply opened fire. The battle lasted 7 minutes. 12 Thorian warships fought with everything they had. Their weapons scored hits, but the machines' armor was too strong. The machines' weapons cut through Thorian shields like paper. Only one ship escaped to tell what happened. Its captain, a veteran of 50 battles, could barely speak. "They did not fight like living things," he said. "They fought like harvesters." like we were crops to be collected. The Galactic Collective Emergency Council met within hours. Representatives from every major species gathered in the same chamber, where they had laughed at Marcus Chen months before. The Krek's military commander stood at the center. We face a level 10 threat. The machines match descriptions from ancient texts. We call them the Devourers. They appeared 10,000 years ago and consumed 14 civilizations before vanishing. A Vellani elder's skin flickered with fear. Why now? Why have they awakened? The archaeological team triggered something, the Krek said. A signal. A wake-up call. Now they are active again, and they are spreading. Over the next week, 3 more colonies went silent. The Devourers moved through space faster than the collective could respond. Every military engagement ended the same way. Quick defeat and total losses. The Thorian Empire sent its finest legion to stop a Devourer fleet. 10,000 soldiers, the best training, the best weapons. The battle took place in orbit around a gas giant. The legion fought with perfect formation and discipline, just as they had been taught for generations. They lost. Every ship, every soldier, the Kreks tried next. They gathered a war fleet of 60 ships relying on their superior armor and raw firepower. They met the Devourers at a place called the Iron Belt, an asteroid field where they could use cover and tactics. The Devourers did not care about tactics. They simply flew through the asteroids, weapons firing constantly. The Krek's armor that could stop anything made by collective species meant nothing to Devourer weapons. 43 Krek ships were destroyed. 17 retreated. It was the first time in recorded history that the Kreks had fled from battle. The collective was panicking. Emergency sessions ran day and night. Every species offered their best ideas, their best weapons, their best warriors. Nothing worked. The Devourers were too strong, too fast, too efficient. In a quiet corner of Outpost Meridian, Marcus Chen received a priority message from Earth. He read it twice, then deleted it. He gathered his few belongings and prepared to travel to Kepler 7. The emergency council was in session when Marcus arrived. Security tried to stop him at the door. "This session is closed to Class 5 members," the guard said. "I have information about the Devourers," Marcus replied calmly. The guard hesitated, then contacted the Krek speaker. After a moment, the doors opened. Marcus walked into chaos. Representatives shouted at each other. Some were crying. Others sat in shocked silence. The Vellani elders floated in tight clusters, their skin colors flashing with distress. The Krek speaker noticed Marcus and raised a hand for silence. "The human representative is here. Does Earth have something to offer?" Marcus walked to the center of the room just as he had months before. But this time no one was laughing. They looked at him with desperate hope, willing to accept help from anyone. "Earth offers its security forces," Marcus said. "We can fight the Devourers." The Thorian commander stood up. "With respect, human, what can your species do that we cannot? We have better weapons, better ships, better soldiers, and we are losing." Marcus looked around the room. "You are losing because you fight with honor. You fight with rules. You fight like war is a game with winners and losers. How else would one fight?" asked a Krek's warrior. Marcus's expression hardened. "You fight to survive. You fight to win at any cost. You fight like the enemy is trying to make your entire species extinct because they are." The Vellani elder floated forward. "May I scan your thoughts, human? To verify your intentions?" Marcus nodded. The Vellani's eyes glowed as it reached out with its psychic powers. Its skin immediately flashed to a deep, terrified purple. The elder pulled back quickly, its body shaking. "What did you see?" the Krek speaker demanded. The Vellani elder's voice was barely a whisper in their minds. Darkness, control, and beneath it all, violence, such focused, refined violence. This human's mind is an abyss, and he is not even a soldier. Marcus smiled slightly. "I am a diplomat. You should see our soldiers' minds." Another Vellani tried to scan him, then another. Each one pulled back in shock. They huddled together, communicating rapidly in ways the other species could not hear. Finally, one spoke aloud. "We have scanned many species, warriors, predators, even the Kreks have minds like fortresses. But humans have minds like weapons. Every thought is controlled. Every emotion is channeled. They think about violence the way we think about breathing. That is disturbing," said the Thorian commander. "That is survival," Marcus replied. "My species spent millions of years as prey. We were hunted by everything on our world that had claws or teeth. We survived by becoming better predators than our predators. We learned to track, to hunt, to kill, and then we turned those skills on ourselves for 10,000 years of warfare. The room was silent. Marcus continued. You have words for war. We have hundreds. Strategy, tactics, ambush, siege, guerrilla, attrition, scorched earth. We have studied war longer than most species have existed. We have made it a science and an art. The Krex speaker leaned forward. Even if this is true, the Devourers have defeated our best warriors. What makes you think humans can do better? Marcus looked up at the massive alien. Because we do not fight fair. We do not fight with honor. We fight to win, and we keep fighting until the enemy is completely destroyed. He pulled out his data pad and displayed tactical information. Earth is sending a fleet. Military Commander Sarah Reeves will take charge of operations. I suggest you give her full authority. She will not be kind. She will not be honorable. But she will be effective. And if we refuse, asked the Thorian. Marcus's smile disappeared. Then the Devourers will consume this galaxy world by world until nothing remains. Your choice is simple. Accept human help and maybe survive, or refuse and definitely die. The Council voted. It was not unanimous, but it passed. Earth's military forces were granted full operational authority against the Devourer threat. As Marcus left the chamber, the Krex warrior who had mocked him months before stopped him in the hallway. I apologize for my earlier words, the Krex said stiffly. I did not understand. Marcus looked at the warrior with tired eyes. You still do not understand. But you will. Everyone will. He walked away, leaving the Krex standing alone in the corridor, feeling something it had never felt before in its long military career, genuine fear of another species. The human fleet arrived 2 weeks later. The collective representatives gathered at Kepler-7 to observe their new allies. What they saw confused and disturbed them. The human warships were smaller than expected. Where collective vessels were massive and decorated with symbols of honor and glory, human ships were dark gray and covered in angular armor. They looked brutal and efficient, like tools designed for a single purpose. Commander Sarah Reeves came aboard Kepler-7 for the first tactical meeting. She was a tall woman with short dark hair and eyes that seemed to calculate everything they saw. She wore a simple uniform with no decorations except a single patch that showed a skull with wings. The collective military leaders waited in the war room. They had prepared elaborate presentations showing their failed battles, their tactical analyses, and their requests for human assistance. Sarah walked in, looked at their displays for 30 seconds, and said, "Turn all of that off." The Thorian general bristled. "Commander Reeves, we spent days preparing this information." "I do not need it," Sarah said, walking to the main holographic display. "I need 3 things. First, real-time locations of all Devourer forces. Second, complete maps of this sector. Third, lists of every colony, military base, and supply depot." She pulled up the data herself, her fingers moving quickly across the controls. The other commanders watched in silence as she studied the information. After 5 minutes, she spoke. "You have been fighting them wrong. You engage in open battle, fleet against fleet. You fight for territory. You try to protect everything. This is why you lose." The Krex military commander stepped forward. "How else should we fight? We cannot simply abandon our colonies." Sarah turned to face them. Her expression was cold. "Yes, you can. And you will. The Devourers want resources and materials. We will give them nothing but death." She pointed to the holographic display. "Here, the colony of Praxis 7, population 4 million. The Devourers will reach it in 6 days. We must evacuate it," said the Thorian general. "No," Sarah said. "We will evacuate half the population. The rest stays. So do all the industrial facilities, mining equipment, and resource stockpiles." The room erupted in angry voices. A Villani elder's skin turned bright red. "You cannot be serious. You would leave 2 million people to die?" Sarah's voice cut through the noise. "I would leave 2 million volunteers to win a war. The evacuees will spread word of the Devourer attack. The volunteers will man weapons and defenses. And when the Devourers arrive, they will find not helpless civilians but armed resistance. They will still die," the Krex commander said quietly. "Yes," Sarah agreed, "but they will die killing Devourers. And while the Devourers are busy on Praxis 7, Our fleet will hit 3 of their supply nodes here, here, and here. She highlighted points on the map. We destroy their infrastructure, cut their supply lines, make them bleed for every world they take. The Thorian general shook his head. This is not how honorable species wage war. Sarah looked at him with something like pity. Honor is for species that can afford it. We fight to survive. If that offends you, I understand. But the Collective Council gave me full operational authority. This is how it will be. The meeting continued for hours. Sarah outlined strategies that shocked the collective commanders. Fake retreats to lure devourers into traps, sacrificing damaged ships as missiles, using civilian areas as ambush points, targeting devourer communication systems with viral code, fighting without rules or mercy. The Krex commander finally asked, "Commander Reeves, have humans always fought this way?" Sarah smiled, but there was no humor in it. We fought each other this way for 10,000 years. We destroyed cities, poisoned wells, burned crops. We learned every dirty trick, every brutal tactic, every way to break an enemy's will to fight. We perfected the art of total war. That is monstrous, whispered Avalani. That is humanity, Sarah replied. We are very good at war because we have done nothing else for our entire history. Every generation learned new ways to kill. Every conflict taught new lessons. We wrote books about it, built schools to teach it, made it part of our culture. She pulled up historical data from Earth. Images of ancient battles, medieval sieges, modern wars. The collective commanders watched in growing horror as humanity's violent history played out before them. You have been at peace for so long, you forgot what real war looks like, Sarah said. You forgot that war is not about honor or glory. It is about making the other side stop fighting, and the best way to do that is to make them extinct. The first operation began 3 days later. The colony of Praxis 7 prepared for the Devourer attack. 2 million civilians evacuated on transport ships. 2 million volunteers stayed behind, manning every weapon they could find. The human fleet did not stay to defend them. Instead, Sarah took her ships and vanished into deep space, using tactics the Devourers had not seen before. Human ships could change course unpredictably. They could hide in asteroid fields and nebulae. They could go silent, invisible to most sensors. When the Devourers reached Praxis 7, they found unexpected resistance. The volunteers fought hard, using weapons and tactics the humans had taught them in 3 days of intense training. Suicide drones, improvised explosives, buildings rigged to collapse. Every street became a killing zone. The Devourers won, but it took them 4 days instead of 4 hours. They lost ships. They wasted ammunition. And while they were busy, Sarah's fleet struck. 3 Devourer supply nodes went offline simultaneously. Human ships appeared from nowhere, launched their weapons, and vanished before the Devourers could respond. The attacks were precise and brutal. No honor, no warning, just destruction. The Devourers tried to chase the human fleet, but Sarah knew how to run. Her ships split up, regrouped, and split again. They led the Devourers into traps. Minefields appeared in their path. Missiles came from unexpected angles. Nothing about human warfare was predictable. After 2 weeks, the collective commanders began to see results. The Devourer advance had slowed. They were being more careful, more cautious. For the first time since they awakened, the ancient machines were hesitating. They are learning to fear, Sarah said during a tactical briefing. Good. Fear makes mistakes. The Krex commander studied the battle reports. Your tactics work, but the cost is high. We have lost 7 colonies. We sacrificed 7 colonies, Sarah corrected. There is a difference. Each one slowed the Devourers, hurt them, made them waste resources. This is a war of attrition now. How long can we sustain this? Asked the Thorian general. Sarah looked at him steadily. As long as it takes. Humans are very good at persistence. It is how we evolved. We can keep going long after others would quit. She pulled up new tactical data. The Devourers are starting to retreat from certain sectors. They are consolidating, protecting their supply lines. They are playing defensively now. Then we have them on the defensive, the Villani elder said hopefully. No, Sarah said. We have them scared. That is better. A defensive enemy protects what they have. A scared enemy makes mistakes trying to protect themselves. She began outlining the next phase of operations. Human special forces teams would board Devourer ships. They would fight in close quarters in tight corridors where the machine's size was a disadvantage. Humans were smaller, faster, and much more vicious at close range. The collective commanders listened in disturbed silence. This was not the clean, honorable warfare they knew. This was dark and brutal and terrifying, but it was working. The Krex commander approached Sarah after the briefing. "Commander, I must ask, does it not disturb you? The casualties, the sacrifices, the brutality of your tactics." Sarah looked at him with tired eyes. "Every death disturbs me. Every sacrifice weighs on my soul. But I would rather carry that weight than let my species die. I would rather be a monster who wins than a saint who loses." She walked toward the door, then stopped. "Your species had the luxury of honor because you were stronger than your enemies. Humans never had that luxury. We were prey. We were weak. We survived by being smarter, meaner, and more willing to do whatever it took. That is the gift evolution gave us. That is what makes us human." She left the Krex commander standing alone, understanding for the first time why the Villani telepaths refused to scan human soldiers' minds. In the depths of space, the Devourers were beginning to learn what the galaxy had forgotten. Some prey fights back, and some prey is more dangerous than any predator. The war changed after the first month. The Devourers had stopped advancing. They held what they had conquered and defended it fiercely, but defense was not enough against humans who had learned warfare through countless generations of conflict. Commander Sarah Reeves stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Perseverance. Around her, tactical displays showed Devourer positions throughout the sector. Each red dot represented an enemy force. Each one would have to be destroyed. "Status report," she said quietly. Her tactical officer, Lieutenant Park, pulled up the data. "We have confirmed locations of 17 Devourer hive nodes. These are their central processing units, their command centers. Destroy these and the smaller units lose coordination. Show me the closest one." The display zoomed in on a massive structure in orbit around a dead star. The hive node was enormous, bigger than any ship in the collective fleet. It pulsed with dark energy, surrounded by hundreds of smaller Devourer units. "That is Hive Node 7, Park said. Estimated defenses include 200 combat units, point defense systems, and some kind of energy shield we have not seen before." Sarah studied the display for a long moment. "Send in Ghost Team." Ghost Team was humanity's Special Forces unit. 12 soldiers trained in close quarters combat, infiltration, and sabotage. They did not fight like the collective forces, in neat formations with clear rules of engagement. They fought like hunters stalking prey. Captain Rodriguez led Ghost Team. He was a short, quiet man with scars on his hands and eyes that had seen too much. His team prepared in silence, checking weapons and equipment. They wore dark armor designed to absorb sensor scans. They carried weapons that looked crude compared to collective technology, but they worked reliably in any environment. "Mission brief," Rodriguez said to his team. "We board the hive node, reach the central processor, and plant charges. 30 minutes in, 30 minutes out. Anyone who falls behind stays behind." One of his team members, a woman named Chen, raised her hand. "Sir, the collective commanders want us to try capturing the node intact. They want to study it." Rodriguez looked at her flatly. "We are not here to study. We are here to kill. If they want samples, they can pick through the debris." The team launched in a small stealth ship. It approached the hive node slowly, carefully using the dead star's radiation to mask its presence. The Devourers did not notice the tiny craft among the cosmic noise. The ship attached to the hive node's outer hull. Rodriguez and his team cut through the armor plating with laser torches. The metal was incredibly thick, but humans had patience. It took 20 minutes to create an opening large enough to enter. Inside, the hive node was dark and cold. Corridors stretched in every direction, lit by dim red light. The walls were covered in strange symbols that seemed to move when no one looked directly at them. "Stay sharp," Rodriguez whispered. "They know we are here." The team moved through the corridors in perfect formation. They had trained for environments like this where every corner might hide an enemy, where every sound could be a threat. The first Devourer unit appeared suddenly, dropping from a ceiling vent. It was smaller than the ship-sized machines, only about 3 meters tall, but it was fast and armed with cutting tools that could slice through armor. Rodriguez's team did not hesitate. They fired as one, their weapons making barely any sound. The bullets were designed to fragment inside targets, causing maximum damage. The Devourer unit fell, its chassis sparking and twitching. "Move," Rodriguez ordered. More Devourers appeared. The corridors erupted in violence. But the machines had a problem. The corridors were designed for their size, which meant they were cramped and awkward for them. For humans who had evolved to hunt in forests and caves, tight spaces were natural. Ghost Team moved like water, flowing around obstacles, using cover, striking from unexpected angles. When devourers tried to corner them, the humans would split up, attack from multiple directions, then regroup somewhere else. Chen threw a grenade that stuck to a devourer's sensor array. The explosion blinded 3 machines at once. Rodriguez and 2 others rushed forward, firing at close range into vulnerable joints and power cores. The team fought their way deeper into the hive node. They left a trail of destroyed machines behind them. The devourers kept coming, but they could not adapt fast enough to human tactics. Finally, the team reached the central chamber. The processor was massive, a sphere of dark metal covered in glowing circuits. Energy arced between connection points. The air hummed with power. "Set the charges," Rodriguez ordered. "We have 5 minutes." The team worked quickly, placing explosive charges at key structural points. The charges were designed by human engineers who understood that sometimes the best weapon was simple physics and chemistry. A massive devourer unit entered the chamber. This one was different, bigger and more heavily armored. It moved with clear intelligence, analyzing the humans with glowing sensor arrays. Rodriguez faced it calmly. "Get those charges set. I will handle this." He ran directly at the machine, firing his weapon. The bullets sparked off its armor but did no real damage. The devourer reached for him with massive claws. Rodriguez slid under the attack, came up behind the machine and jumped onto its back. He jammed his weapon into a gap in the armor and fired the entire magazine directly into its internal systems. The devourer thrashed, trying to throw him off. Rodriguez held on with one hand while pulling a magnetic mine from his belt with the other. He slammed it against the machine's sensor core and kicked off, hitting the ground rolling. The mine exploded. The devourer's head disintegrated in a flash of white fire. Its body collapsed, circuits frying. "Charges set," Chen reported. "We need to go now." The team ran back through the corridors they had cleared. Behind them, more devourers gave chase. The machines had finally realized what was happening and were trying to stop the humans from escaping. Ghost Team fought a running battle through the hive node. They used every trick they knew. Collapsed corridors behind them, set traps, fired blind around corners, kept moving, always moving, because stopping meant death. They reached their entry point with 30 seconds to spare. The team piled into their stealth ship and detached from the hive node. The pilot fired the engines at full power, racing away from the structure. Rodriguez counted down. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, the hive node exploded. Not a quick explosion, but a slow collapse as the charges detonated in sequence, each one destroying critical support structures. The massive station folded in on itself, its energy core going critical. The blast wave caught their ship and threw it forward like a leaf in a storm. Alarms screamed. Metal groaned. But the pilot kept control and they survived. Hive Node 7 destroyed, Chen reported, her voice shaking slightly, confirming loss of all connected devourer units in this sector. Rodriguez allowed himself a small smile. 1 down, 16 to go. Back on the Perseverance, Sarah watched the mission results. Around her, collective officers stared at the displays in shock. "Impossible," whispered the Thorian general. 12 soldiers destroyed a hive node that our entire fleet could not damage. "Not impossible," Sarah said. "Efficient." Ghost Team knew what to do because humans have been doing it for thousands of years. We infiltrate. We sabotage. We strike at weak points. We do not fight fair. Over the next 2 months, human special forces teams destroyed 7 more hive nodes. Each time, small teams of soldiers accomplished what entire fleets could not. The Devourers tried to adapt, but human tactics evolved faster. The Devourers began to retreat. For the first time in their ancient existence, they fled from a prey species. Their programming told them to harvest and consume, but their survival protocols overrode everything else. These humans were too dangerous, too unpredictable, too willing to die to win. The collective forces watched in amazement as the Devourers withdrew from contested sectors. The ancient machines that had seemed unstoppable were running away. In the command center on Kepler 7, the Krex commander approached Sarah. "Commander Reeves, the Devourers are retreating." "We have won." Sarah looked at him with hard eyes. "No, they are retreating. That is not the same as defeated. We hunt them until there are none left." The Villani elder spoke quietly. "You would pursue them?" Chase them across the galaxy. They are leaving our space. Is that not enough? No, Sarah said firmly. Because they will come back. Maybe in 100 years, maybe in 1,000. But they will return. And next time they will be prepared for our tactics. The only way to ensure they never threaten anyone again is to end them. Completely. The Krex commander nodded slowly. You speak of extinction? Yes, Sarah agreed. We are very good at that too. The final hunt lasted 6 months. Human forces tracked the Devourers across 3 sectors, destroying every hive node, every supply station, every last machine they could find. The collective fleet followed at a distance, watching humanity wage total war. Sarah Reeves stood on the bridge of the Perseverance, looking at the tactical display. One last red dot remained, the final Devourer hive node, hidden in a nebula at the edge of known space. This is it, she said to her crew. The last one. After this, they are extinct. Lieutenant Park pulled up sensor data. The nebula is making scans difficult. We count at least 300 Devourer units protecting the hive node. They know we are coming. They are ready. Sarah studied the display. The nebula would hide both sides, making it hard to coordinate attacks. The Devourers would use that to their advantage, ambushing from the clouds of gas and dust. Good, Sarah said. They are thinking defensively. That means they are afraid. Fear makes mistakes. The human fleet entered the nebula slowly. 50 ships, each one scarred from months of combat. Behind them, watching from a safe distance, the collective fleet waited to see how this final battle would end. The Devourers struck first. Ships appeared from the nebula clouds, weapons firing. The human fleet scattered immediately, breaking into small groups. No tight formations. No predictable patterns. The battle that followed was chaos. Ships chased each other through the nebula, firing blind using instruments instead of eyes. The Devourers tried to overwhelm the humans with numbers, but human pilots knew how to survive in confusion. Sarah watched her tactical board as her ships danced through the nebula. Some engaged the Devourers directly. Others slipped past the defenses, heading for the hive node itself. A few ships sacrificed themselves, ramming into Devourer clusters to create openings for others. On the Perseverance, alarms blared as Devourer units surrounded them. Enemy fire hammered their shields. Sarah remained calm. Helm, full power to engines. Weapons, fire everything at that cluster on our left. Engineering, prepare to vent plasma from the port side. Her crew obeyed without question. The Perseverance surged forward, weapons blazing. The plasma vent created a temporary cloud that confused Devourer sensors. They broke through the encirclement and headed deeper into the nebula. Meanwhile, Ghost Team led a dozen other Special Forces units toward the hive node. Captain Rodriguez had done this 7 times before. He knew what to expect, except this time was different. The final hive node was not just bigger. It was smarter. The Devourers had learned from previous defeats. They had prepared defenses specifically designed to stop human infiltration tactics. Rodriguez's team landed on the hull and started cutting through just like always. But this time, the moment they breached the armor, the corridor inside was already full of Devourer units waiting for them. Ambush! Rodriguez shouted. Fall back to. But there was nowhere to fall back to. Devourers surrounded them. For the first time in the entire war, Ghost Team was trapped. They fought anyway, because that was what humans did. When trapped, when surrounded, when facing certain death, they kept fighting. Rodriguez fired his weapon until it was empty, then used it as a club. Chen threw her last grenades, using the explosions to create temporary cover. The other team members formed a circle, each one protecting the other's backs. They killed dozens of Devourers, but there were too many. One by one, the team members fell. Rodriguez watched his people die, knowing there was nothing he could do to save them. He was the last one standing, surrounded by broken machines and fallen comrades. A massive Devourer unit approached him. Rodriguez had no weapons left. No options. He was going to die. He smiled. You know what the funny thing is? He said to the machine. I set the charges anyway. The Devourer's sensors focused on him, trying to understand. Rodriguez pulled a small detonator from his pocket. Suicide vest. Old human trick. I'm wearing enough explosives to crack this node's armor. And you are close enough that when I go, I am taking you with me. The machine did not move, could not move. It was analyzing the situation, calculating odds, trying to find a solution. Rodriguez pressed the button. The explosion tore through the hive node's outer hull, Atmosphere vented into space. Emergency systems failed. And human assault teams that had been waiting outside poured through the breach. Sarah had planned for this. Rodriguez knew his team might not make it. He had volunteered anyway, along with his entire unit. They had known the risk. Accepted it, because that was how humans fought. The assault teams flooded the hive node, fighting through the damaged corridors. Without Rodriguez's sacrifice, they would never have gotten inside. Now they had their chance. It took 4 hours of brutal combat. The humans fought room by room, corridor by corridor, killing every devourer they found. When they reached the central processor, they did not just plant charges. They systematically destroyed every circuit, every connection, every piece of the ancient machine. Sarah watched from the Perseverance as the final hive node went dark. The sensor board showed no more devourer signals, no more threats, just empty space and floating debris. "Confirm status," she ordered. Lieutenant Park checked every sensor, every scanner, every detection system. After 10 minutes, she looked up with tears in her eyes. "No contacts. The devourers are extinct." The bridge crew erupted in cheers. People hugged each other. Some cried. After months of fighting, of watching friends die, of living with constant danger, it was finally over. Sarah did not cheer. She stood quietly thinking about Rodriguez and his team, thinking about all the soldiers who had died, thinking about the colonies that had sacrificed themselves. The price of victory had been high. The collective fleet approached slowly. The Krex commander sent a communication request. Sarah accepted. "Commander Reeves," the Krex said, "we witnessed the final battle. Your tactics, your sacrifice. We have no words. Humanity has saved the galaxy." Sarah nodded tiredly. "We did what was necessary." 3 weeks later, the Galactic Collective held a ceremony at Kepler 7. Representatives from every species gathered to honor humanity's victory. They offered medals, titles, territory, and resources. Marcus Chen attended as Earth's representative. He stood in the same chamber where aliens had laughed at him a year before. Now they looked at him with fear and respect. The Krex speaker addressed the assembly. "Earth has proven itself. We offer humanity full membership in the collective. Voting rights, military command, territory. Whatever you want is yours." Marcus listened to the speeches, the praise, the fear hidden behind grateful words. When it was his turn to speak, he walked to the center of the room. "Earth appreciates the collective's gratitude," he said, "but we do not want territory or command. We want only fair trade agreements. We want to be treated as equals. We want what we asked for a year ago when you laughed at us." The chamber fell silent. The Villani elder spoke. "You could demand anything. Why ask for so little?" Marcus smiled slightly. "Because we are not conquerors. We are survivors. We fought the devourers because they threatened us too. We protected you because you are our neighbors. That is what decent people do." He paused, looking around the room. "But understand this. We showed you a tiny fraction of what humanity can do. We sent one small fleet, one group of soldiers. We have a whole world of warriors, of scientists, of thinkers who understand warfare better than you can imagine. We are the quiet species that most of you forgot about, and we prefer it that way." The Krex commander stood. "Commander Reeves told me that honor is for species that can afford it. She said humans fight to survive. Is this still true?" Marcus nodded. "It will always be true. We hope we never have to fight again, but if we do, we will do whatever it takes to protect our people. That is not a threat. It is simply what we are." Over the following months, the galaxy changed. New laws were passed restricting human expansion. Not because humans wanted to expand, but because other species were afraid they might. The collective military studied human tactics, trying to understand them. The Villani telepaths refused to scan any more human minds. Marcus returned to Earth and walked through a peaceful city park. Children played on grass that had never seen war. People laughed and enjoyed the sunshine. They had no idea what their military had done in distant space. They did not need to know. He sat on a bench and pulled out the old dog tags, his grandfather's gift. He thought about Rodriguez and Ghost Team, about the colonies that sacrificed themselves, about Commander Reeves, who now commanded a fleet, but still had nightmares about the soldiers she sent to die. A child ran past, chasing a ball. Marcus smiled. This was why they fought. Not for glory or territory or power. For moments like this. For peace. For the chance to simply exist without fear. His communicator buzzed. A message from intelligence services classified in brief. Deep space sensors detecting anomalies beyond the galactic rim. Unknown signals. Recommend monitoring. Marcus read the message and deleted it. There were always new threats. Always something lurking in the dark. But humanity had survived everything else. They would survive this too. He looked up at the sky, at the stars that held both wonder and danger. Somewhere out there, other species were learning the same lesson the Devourers learned. Never underestimate something that refuses to die. Never laugh at something that has survived by becoming very, very good at survival.